Test 1, 2.
Doesn't sound like it. Hello?
It's not going to be in here real loud. But
Oh, okay. That's fine.
You're on YouTube, too.
Great. Oh, fantastic. Welcome, everybody. September 22nd, meeting of the Tourist Development Council. We will do our customary welcome and introductions. I'm Tom Hermanson with Ocean Partners.
Andrea Young, West Melbourne City Council.
Rob Medina from the greatest city on the face of the earth, Palm Bay.
Chief Winston, Brevard Zoo.
Brian Lober, Brevard County.
Bob Bacher, Cocoa Beach Surf Company.
Peter Cranes with the TDO.
Candace Narmore with TDO.
Brian Blanchard, TDO.
Charity Stewart, TDO.
Christine Chabert from the County Attorney's Office. Jesse Ray Communications.
Mike McGarry, Brevard County Natural Resources.
Melissa Pope, TDO.
So we got we're just introducing ourselves to ourselves. That's good. That's great. No outsiders. Dave didn't even make it.
There's one person, looks like there's one person on, Kathy
Okay, and we've got Kathy
and Sharon.
and Jaron online. Welcome, everybody. Next, we will ask for an approval, motion to approve the agenda. If there's no changes, entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Lober and a second by Andrea Young. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Any disclosure of any, Dave made it. Welcome, Dave. We were wondering what happened. Made it. Any request to disclose any conflict? We will ask for an approval. Request to disclose any conflict of interest by any commissioner on any agenda item or any council member.
None.
None. Hearing none, we move on to approval of the minutes of August 25th.
So moved. Lober.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Lober and a second by Mayor Medina. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Director's report, Peter.
Thank you, sir. Welcome, everybody. Couple of things. Last week at the Board of County Commissioners, we had 5 items. All of those items passed, so those were all items that had previously been seen by the TDC, including our office move. A few of the other items we'll cover as we get into committee, but that was very positive.
Can you tell us about the office move discussion at the commission level?
Sure. So there was a little bit of discussion from one particular commissioner,
I'm sorry.
not Commissioner Lober, wanting us to be neighbors with Commissioner Lober in a space that was about half the size of what we really needed. The rationale being we could save money, but at the end of the day, we're going to be awash by the time we move, and we're able to use the facilities for our committee meetings. It's going to be a negligible increase in rent, so I was successfully able to negotiate that through, and thank you to Commissioner Lober, who had a lot of good positive things to say during that discussion, and passed 4-1. So.
And I definitely did not wish myself on Peter on a daily basis, so
That was the logic.
that was part of my logic. The monetary portion certainly is a factor, but I did not, I like him well enough, I did not want him to have to be subjected to me on an ongoing basis like that.
Well, that aside, we appreciate it. The space, we just actually walked this space this morning again, and we're very excited about it. Our plan is to be up and moved and in the new space by November 1st that week to be fully operational. Might take us a few days here or there with technology, but the hope is that it'll be a transparent move to anybody outside of our organization. So we've got about 30 some days to get that done. So we're going to be working hard towards that, and we'll be soliciting help from the facilities department at the county, the IT department. So we'll have a lot of support to get there. So.
Great. Can you remind us, just since I'm curious, what the other items were and how?
Sure. Yeah, the other 4 items.
Lively discussions?
Sure. A little bit of discussion. One was Lori Wilson Park. That passed 4-1. A little questioning about in the grant, there was a line about a water feature being added, which really is a pond that would be created or it exists, but it's kind of overgrown, so it'd be a rethinking of that space for birding, trying to get some, water elements in there, but I think the thought was that it was going to be some grandiose, fountain or something like that, which that is not the intent. At this point, it's really going to be more functional for birds. That was the only question, and then that passed. That was $1 million for Lori Wilson. There was a question about the Valiant Air Command as to why it didn't pass, and I quickly explained that, and that moved along. All of the cultural grants got passed, so the 17 grants for $150,000 came. Those were passed. The new sports event grant, that was passed. And the BCA, both their annual contract and their lease, we kind of brought those together because their lease was expiring in December. And so we put those together, and both of those passed.
Great.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Just a few other things to share, very positive. We don't have final August numbers yet. We'll get those probably in about 2 weeks, but it looks like we're tracking on a 1.4 million or so August, which will give us, it'll put us about 3 to 4% ahead of 2019 numbers. So if you look from March to August, and that's not, unfortunately, it's not in your packet, but I was just looking at these numbers yesterday. If you look from March to August, our March to August is up over $1 million over 2019 March to August, and that has made up all the difference over the losses that we had from October to February. So, come when the August numbers post, we'll be in the 3 to 4% ahead of 2019, tracking on about a $16.5 million final budget is my estimate right now. So we just have, after August, then we'll just have this month. If you recall, the last 2 Septembers, last year was COVID, the year before was Hurricane Dorian. So I'm pretty confident that our September will be better than the last couple of years. So I think we'll end the year strong and be able to roll into 2021 fall pretty well, 2021-22 budget pretty well. And when we get to the marketing part, Charity's going to share some of what we're going to do this fall with some of those funds. Other than that, budget, we're bang on budget. I think we're estimating to be within about $100,000 of the total marketing budget, and all the other budgets we've been tracking either right on or even slightly behind. I think we'll be in good shape from a financial perspective as we go into the next fiscal.
How much carry over will we have?
If we land at $16.5 million, we will have a $5.5 million balance forward, and that'll be recognized in March when they do the mid-year review. And then we'll be able to allocate those funds and access them in April.
So what you're saying is that we already have our budget for next year because of the carryover, in the sense that we don't do worse than what we did. And in my way of thinking, because of the cruise industry was not operating even at 40%,
right,
is significant. Mm-hmm. So I would be shocked that with the carryover and everything else that you don't exceed it almost by the same amount again. I just because my last fall I'm still operating down because cruise is 40%, not 120% or whatever it is.
Right.
But you got almost by sometime by the end of next year, you'll have 800 rooms opened in our area that you never had, not to mention the vacation by owners that came online during that time. So I think there's a swell there. It's just, again, the unknown is how many waves will we have during your budget year of COVID. So I'm very comfortable with your budget.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, I think, We're, from a hotel inventory perspective, we're up about 20% new rooms from the beginning of 2020. And from vacation rentals, the best numbers that I've seen, we're up about 12% in vacation rental dollars. So, you know, both of those, if we get back to 100% cruising at some point next year, you know, I think we're easily going to hit our $15 million budget and then some. So, you know, we'll definitely have a strong 12 months ahead of us, as long as there's no, you know, major setbacks or, you know. I mean, I think it's up to the economy to keep doing what it's doing, but I think we're in good shape there.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If I may. Mr. Kranitz, I'm just wondering to what degree we might be able to use any portion of that balance forward to increase the reserve amount in the beach fund?
So that's something that we can start by bringing to the beach committee once we get it, know what the number is. If it's for $5.5 million and you're splitting it, it's going to be probably about $1 million
That's
that,
something.
you know, would be looked at there. And yeah, we could potentially designate it. The committee could, and then they bring it here for a vote. But yeah, that's something certainly can look at.
Appreciate it.
Isn't that just a mechanism of the 25% of collections goes to the beach fund?
In the case of a carry forward, it's a special recognition. What they do is they take the total amount, they calculate what the allocation is based on the percentage of the TDT by ordinance, and then the committee can then look and see, you know, what do we want to do with those funds. So on the marketing front, we'll bring it through the marketing committee. We're going to probably want to spend a significant portion of the carry forward, because that was in the marketing plan, it was laid out that way. But for beach, we didn't designate what would happen with the carry forward, so it could either be used for a project, or it could be just put towards reserves for future projects.
So the allocations still hold, it's just within that.
Yeah, with it, right. It's
How
just
you use the money. not-
Yeah, how-
not-
right,
not
exactly.
How much you get.
Yeah, you can't shift between the pennies, but for that amount for the beach, you can decide what you want to do with
Put it into
it.
reserves.
Last time we looked at that 50-year plan, it was still in the red.
Yeah, we run out of funds in probably about 7-8 years, I think, so.
Right, which is one of our, you know, biggest concerns here. We should continue to keep a look at, and hopefully no future diversions of TDC funds to non-tourist related projects.
Your eyeball okay, or?
Roads.
Looks like there's a little twitch there.
No, just looking at the commissioner in the room. Excellent.
My 2 cents on the beach fund is definitely put it in the reserves if you can, because, again, if we get through this year and we will never have enough reserves because of the type of storms are growing.
If Dorian, I don't think anybody, well, I think some people appreciate it, certainly Mike does. If Dorian had continued on its path and hit Cape Canaveral and Cocoa Beach, which is, we were in the center of the cone of uncertainty, you know, 150, 60 mile an hour winds for 24 hours, it would have just wiped out Cocoa Beach and Cape Canaveral. And we would have been, you know, COVID would have looked like child's play compared to that.
Yeah, our budget would have basically disappeared by about
Yeah.
70%.
Yeah, and
And when you look at
will
what it
happen
takes
in
to
our
do even
lifetime.
just a renourishment project, you know, we're going to be spending about $9 million. Of course, most of that is coming from the feds and some state funds and some from ours, but, you know, $9 million is what it's going to take to do the mid-reach.
And that's just,
That's with sand on the beach already. If you had to replenish a storm like that, it would be, you know, probably in the tens of millions.
after the '04 storm, '05, when the Best Western, a couple of buildings were knocked out, there was like 2.5 feet of sand on Ocean Beach Boulevard, 300 feet, you know, from the dunes.
And that was a mild storm.
Yeah.
That was a mild
That was
storm.
Francis or Jean.
No, I'll just put out there, I don't think I was too ambiguous, but just to be as blunt as I can possibly be, if it comes back from the committee and they're good with putting it into reserves, chances are overwhelmingly high I'll be good with it too. So if that helps you count votes.
That's great.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
One vote. Thank you. Great. We'll move on to committee reports. First is Bob's Marketing Committee.
Charity, you're up there.
Sure. Let's do this. I've got a short presentation. The marketing committee met 2 weeks ago, so I'm going to briefly recap what we covered. And of course, Bob, if I missed anything, please add to my notes here. We started with just a reflection moment, like Peter said, about where we're going to end. Where we started this year, I will be the first to say I didn't think we'd be here. And so we gave a very big thank you to the marketing committee for all of the work as we onboarded the new creative agency and really refined that direction. And I want to say the same to you all. The feedback that we got really has built a solid foundation, and I'm very excited to take that into the next fiscal year. So we're hopefully, as said already, we have a real solid, no major events year. All right, Brian. So the summer paid campaign highlights that I have for you today, we're still waiting on a couple of the look back reports, but so far averaging about 43 to 1 ROI, which is, and just as a reminder, these are people who took action to a book or arrived in market. So very strong ROI and on par with what we saw for the spring campaigns. Time spent listening to the Pandora station is up to just under 100,000 hours with an average time spent of 28 minutes. That's up 4 minutes from the last time we talked about it. So again, people who are really engaged. I am taking nominations for changes to the playlist for the fall, so if anybody's got anything they want to add, please let me know.
I don't think you ever sent us the playlist.
We'll send it in the notes. I got the playlist.
Love to see it.
Yes, and Commissioner Luber, I have your suggestion from last meeting, so. The SpotX, which is our programmatic video for connected TV and digital streaming, I wanted to just share that we've driven over 1.4 video completions, but our 30-second, which primarily runs in non-skippable placements, is running at a 96.5% view through rate, completion rate, which is well above the industry benchmark. So just a really strong, again, indicator of fully delivered impressions for those folks who are watching through those streaming and digital TV devices. And then just as I was looking through the reports, the click-through rates across the board are definitely running stronger than the spring campaign. So we're utilizing all those tools to more effectively engage and target the right audience and serve them the message that gets them to click through. So very strong performance as we went through the summer. And then just a couple of additional earned media highlights. So over the summer, we had a total of 69 media placements that had an 812 million reach. And I just like to remind everybody that if I were to buy that, I'd need another $741,000, dollars approximately, and great coverage. Southern Living, we had some fishing pickups, a couple of high travel video vloggers who visited the area, a lot of family-friendly content through the summer, and the list from media wanting to visit coming into the fall continues to be very strong. So a lot of interest in covering multiple facets of our area. And then for our the channels that we have, our website, we continue to track those markets where we're spending a lot of money. Are we seeing actions on the website? Are they coming to the website? Are they new visitors? Are we reaching new people? And are they doing the things that we want them to do on the website? That continues to trend up. So year over year, those markets that we're targeting, like the major markets, New York, Philadelphia, DC, Chicago, Charlotte, Atlanta, all continue to show strong performance and goal conversions. When they're coming to the site, they're looking at hotel availability, they're looking at our vacation planner, they're signing up for our email leads. So we're continuing to watch those and maximize those efforts. Our email engagement rate is up to 13 and just under 13.5% average open rate. And I mention that because one of the things that we've continued to look at for our goals is, can we continue to drive content that is more tailored to the audience's inbox, right? Personalized messaging. And this summer, our emails are up to, that's a 23% increase in open rate. So we're definitely moving in the right direction and serving people what they want in their inbox. And social media engagement, 3.1 million people reached with just under 10 million impressions served. So we are, again, meeting people where they are looking in different areas and all driving them back to the website. All right, so that is the spring. The fall brief is very similar to what we all talked about last time. The marketing committee did approve this brief, so we're going to start mid-October. We'll run through the end of December. We're looking at our key Florida markets. We're going to continue in those southeast drive fly markets like Atlanta and Charlotte, and then also those northeast feeder markets. The one thing I want to note on here that is a little bit different than the last time we met, one of the things that the marketing committee agreed to is that we're going to include a little bit of additional direct flight messaging in the new Allegiant airline markets. So that is Pittsburgh, Concord, which is Charlotte, where we already are, and a little bit in Nashville. And we're going to do that in multiple ways. We're going to use search, we're going to use social, we're going to use one of our travel display partners, and then also going to be able to integrate some of the streaming television. So to try to beef up those direct flights that start in November, the marketing committee did let us know that we were okay with about 50,000 of what we've already got allocated within the fall budget to target those messages, and then depending on how well that does, we can increase it to 100,000. So that was the one slight change since we met last. Anybody have any questions on that? Okay. This is just a real overview. We're taking, again, that integrated approach in our media mix. So TV, connected TV and streaming, all the way through all of our different programmatic and display vendors. We've looked a lot at what display vendors served us well for the summer, and knowing our goals for the fall, what does our mix need to look like, and adjusting accordingly. The use of social, a lot of heavy video through the social, and then again working on Florida co-ops, high impact placements, and we're also adjusting our search keyword strategy to meet some of those shorter fall getaways, increase for cruising, and again to add to the direct flights, making it easy for people to get here. Okay. We are sticking with the same fall creative. We are updating though for fall messaging. So we're doing things like fall getaways, relaxing fall trips, just adjusting from a heavy summer vacation to a fall getaway theme. But all still city plus space graphics. So you've got your city on the Space Coast, and then the landing page has more information on, we're also updating it for the fall events, outdoor activities to do in the fall, that content that will help support how they can plan a trip, get here easily, and then what activities they can do while they're here. And that's all I had for today.
Point out that we still have the sizing issues on the names of the cities in these graphics. I'd love to see the cities bigger.
On slide 8?
Yeah,
Okay.
personally, Cocoa Beach,
Personally, Palm Bay.
big.
And
Palm
Melbourne.
Bay,
Melbourne's the
Melbourne.
smallest. Melbourne is so tiny.
Melbourne, you can't even see.
all.
West Melbourne is the top one.
How'd I miss the top one?
The biggest one.
So,
No, I'm saying the text. I mean, you can't, if you put that on a billboard,
Yes, it is.
so these are social and digital graphics.
I know.
So they're sized for the dimensions that they are, and they don't always translate well onto print, but we will retake a look at the sizing of all of the text for
The-
the ads.
The issue here is that we put a format there, and the format's dictating it. And in some cases, I would prefer that you would move Space Coast out there and give the city more publicity, and the Space Coast could be a liner across the bottom. But basically, you're setting up a format, and then the format dictates, and because you have different letter counts, everything. You see the Titusville, Vieiro, and Rockledge show better up, and then you run into the thing that I doubt if Rockledge has 100 room nights, okay? And so it's just, in my opinion, we should have had what we're advertising cleaned up a little bit. But Tom, you get this when you just shove in the format. So.
Yeah, and then I also question, like, I think we've birthed several more cities here.
We did.
You know, politics aside, doesn't Melbourne and the beaches, you know, also encompass West Melbourne? I know, there's territory and stuff down there, I get it, but when
So-
we're advertising to the outside world, I don't think anybody's gonna know the difference between West Melbourne and Melbourne and the beaches. So instead of confusing the consumer with, you know, sub-markets of Melbourne, I think Melbourne and the beaches covers it pretty well. And there isn't a hotel in Rockledge. I don't think there's any, like, I don't think there's any Airbnbs in Rockledge.
The Palmer is the one that I'm thinking of off Fisk. It's not a huge one, but
I
the one that
But I
comes to
mean,
mind.
Rockledge is not a destination. Rockledge is something you drive through from Cocoa to Melbourne.
I don't know.
So,
I don't know I'd necessarily agree with that. I'm not too sure.
I'm sorry, I mean, okay,
He's
Or-
talking statistically. When
statistically,
you do
we
number
advertise to
counts
the
and
outside world. We're not
advertising and
advertising to us in
it's
the
a
room
numbers
here.
game.
We're advertising to people in Charlotte.
But what about the Coquina fans in Charlotte that really want to find out why it's called Rockledge due to the Coquina Shelf?
I
I
didn't
will
even know
say,
that.
there's,
I
there's
didn't
a
even know
couple
that,
of-
and I've been here for 30
tourism.
years.
Well, no, there's a couple of Orlando blogs that talk about Rockledge as a date destination. So it's not totally unheard of.
That's Cocoa Village.
Mr. Chair,
No, it's Rockledge. I mean, it's a Rockledge itinerary.
Mr. Chair.
So the,
I mean, I think that what I would say about the fact that we have, decided to go down this path to promote all the cities on the Space Coast, we did our due diligence and have highlighted all the cities as requested. However, when we run media,
Yes.
the media weight of what we run certainly matches more with Cocoa Beach and Melbourne getting a much heavier spend, I would say, and much heavier exposure in our digital, particularly in our digital. And because it's intuitive, as people begin to click through to different content, what gets served is those ads that are most popular. So in our data, as we look backwards for summer and spring, Cocoa Beach was number one, no surprise. Melbourne, Cape Canaveral, those, as you would expect, the markets that people are familiar with rise to the top in our media rotation. So we are giving some exposure and nods to those smaller municipalities. That's the campaign. That's the way we laid it out. And we can certainly look at size. I think that's something that we, is a legitimate discussion, is to look at size of fonts on digital. It's a little different when you're seeing it in a printout versus on a screen, but we can certainly take a look at that. We have adjusted for that in the billboards because obviously you want the letters to be a certain size so they're readable. So readability is something that we'll take a look at and just make sure that we have some analysis with. But in terms of just when you think about our digital campaign and millions of dollars of media running, I can assure you the municipalities that are best known and most known for travel are those that are getting the biggest media allocation.
So no surfing.
Was that a fair statement,
Yes.
Charity?
No surfing in West Melbourne.
I would assume also on the digital that most of them are handheld digital now. I,
A lot of mobile, yeah,
Yes.
people are
is it
lot
more
of
mobile? Like,
Heavy mo-
are we
heavy
in
mobile.
close to 75% now?
No, you're still hanging more like 60/40, 35, 65, but it is definitely heavy
Yeah,
mobile.
so the font size becomes important because on the small
It's smaller,
stuff,
yeah.
it's tough. So, Tom, you picked up on it. It's just, we're doing a catch-all here, trying to please everybody, and we all voted that way, so it's hard to say it, but the reality is that the best advertising is the one that's most responsive. I mean, and our end goal here is, that's why I pushed the Cocoa Beach name, is because it takes less money to draw more people in than trying to draw them into Rockledge, okay? It's just, and there's a non-return to promoting Rockledge because it's a political promotion. It's not a marketing promotion. So we're and in all fairness to the staff, that's their direction. There was a political cover everybody, and then when you try to do that, the formats, and you're trying to have a consistency, it doesn't always work that way. So this is the best you can do unless you start breaking all the rules across here and go against the grain.
Okay,
Can I say something, Mr. Chairman?
yes.
I agree with everything that is said. I just think, as last Wednesday proved, I happened to be in Miami when the launch Inspiration 4 went up. The tagline Space Coast is getting more and more lift than it ever has before, because I mean, I know I didn't do it on purpose, but I couldn't stop myself. But I just think that we're starting to be recognized as a place to be, and I'm glad I'm in that market. You know what I mean? Like, it's, when I started this, it was, nobody knew where the Space Coast was. So I think it's the national press coverage of that launch, and we're doing things that are beyond what has ever been done before. For me, being recognized as on the Space Coast has more leverage in the font size, I think, than it has before in the past. So I love the unifying message, and I agree, like, there could be some tweaking, and I agree with everything everybody said. I just think that this unified message is so much more powerful than it's ever been before at this time, the time we're in now.
Okay. And again, don't take it as against the unifying message.
Yeah,
It
no.
is, I sold out on the launch, and I had never not sold out on a launch.
Yeah.
So the exposure is second to none. Okay, especially when a billionaire buys it and then flies all his company employees in. They were all over the place. So the exposure was second to none, and every launch and I've been around here since I was 11 years old, so that's like 60-some years of launches. So launches sell out, the exposure sells out, the Space Coast. The problem with the Space Coast, and I'll say it one more time, I'm not against the Space Coast, it's broader than our Brevard County. It's all inclusive from Jupiter to St. Augustine to almost Tampa. When I'm in the Bahamas, I can actually see a launch quite clearly. So when we did our own studies here, that he outlined that the Space Coast recognition is not Brevard, it's regional. So all I'm trying.
But I think we can do
Well,
things
Peter,
that will highlight that.
Let me finish here. So what I thought we all agreed to was always have Space Coast where it's appropriate in the ads. Okay, but feature our natural resources too. So that balancing act, because our budget, whether it's 5 million or 10 million or 20 million, was not as much as the 2-day launch or 3-day launch coverage that we got from SpaceX, so that last, tourist space thing. That coverage was like 10 times more than our whole budget if we just would have all spent it in that week. So the space is, and the other problem we're having is they just gave permission to launch from Texas. They're launching from Arizona, so we cannot go down the road of this is the only place that can see a rocket launch. We need to go down the road that, see, you know, that what we agreed to is advertise our region, why you should vacation here, see our beaches, see our lagoons, see whatever each region or city wants to promote here, and do it in a manner that is under the flag of the Space Coast, but certainly use the assets. Cruise port is the second or third cruise port. Our beaches are well-known. Cocoa Beach, you can spend 3 times as much advertising the Space Coast without it, or 1/3, and you'll get just as many returns. So basically, it's the best bang for your money that you're opposed to doing. And then politically make everybody happy. Which, how you doing over there?
It ain't easy living on the ledge. Mr. Chair,
Okay, my 2 cents. You brought it up, Tom. I just gave my 2 cents.
on Bob's earlier comment with respect to the font size issue, the split, the 60/40, I think you said, was roughly the breakdown between mobile and desktop. Assuming it's anywhere near that, I just wonder if there's any reason that we can't target, based on the browser ID, different font sizes for mobile devices versus desktop browsers. So if something comes in and it shows that it's being browsed on an Android device, maybe you do it where a font takes up a larger percentage of the overall presentation, but if it comes through and they're clearly on a desktop browser, you feed them the font that's a little bit smaller percentage-wise, knowing that the screen's in all likelihood going to be substantially larger. I think that's kind of a way to resolve it. It may be a slightly more complex, but I don't think it's an inordinate burden. If you look at a lot of websites, even I think our Supervisor of Elections website, if you go on, there's a mobile version, and then there's a desktop version,
Yeah.
and the layout's totally different to try to make it a little more legible and a little more accessible.
I'm sure the whizzes at the ad agency are all over that. I didn't want to, yeah, we've had the discussion. Big fonts in the cities.
I don't want
It's been said.
to give them a categorical direction from the board saying we either
No.
do or don't want bigger fonts, and then have it where it basically is shotgunned across every ad so that
No.
it's a
They
little more
get it.
impactful than we're looking.
I think they get what we're saying.
We do.
Yep,
Okay.
yep. Horse is dead. Kicked it one more time. Thank you, Charity.
You're welcome.
Good presentation. Quick question, cruising, I mean, you mentioned it in the WHO here, but
Yes.
we're going to be promoting cruising coming back here in the fall campaign?
Yes, so I failed to mention when I showed you the creative slide, this is 4 or 5 screenshots of 40 or 50 different version sizes, cities, animated, short video, and the static. So the cruising is in the 30-second TV spot that's running. Cruising is also in the shorter video shorts that we're running through YouTube and some of the video display. We also have animated banners for the port for cruising. And then we've got a return to cruising landing page that those are going to. And we're constantly pulling the updated information from the cruise lines and from the port on that. Social has a cruise element to it as well. I think that, and obviously it's running in search
Okay.
across our displays.
That reminds me, we've tried in the past, Bob has in the past, to coordinate with Port Canaveral. Last they checked, I think they had a $400,000 budget, but that was years ago.
Yeah.
Are they doing anything?
No, we
No.
met with them. They have zero marketing budget this year. We told them we would help them wherever we could. We certainly, it's a big part of our mix.
Yep.
It's a big part of the media buy. It's a large percentage of our rotation, but, when we asked, are there specific things that they want us to do, shows to go to, like trade shows, things like that. There's a couple of trade shows that we're going to, and we'll represent them, but from a media perspective, they didn't really have, a lot of direction for us. So they were just happy that we were promoting cruising. So
Is Dave Poston still there?
he's retired, and Bobby G's retired. So they have a whole new crew of people, which we met with, including the captain as well. So, yeah, we met with the whole team about, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago, and showed them a lot of the creative, showed them what we were doing. They were happy that we were there to support.
Well, they're
but
not spending any money.
They're spending $0 this year. Yeah.
Tom, let me give you some comments. The cruise industry is operating about 40%. 100% means all the rooms are sold. 150% means that they got more people in the rooms than two. So we're operating around 40%, and they're doing it to make sure that they can continue to operate without going up and down. Okay, so there's been bugs like the protocol stuff. The people aren't getting off because they got to get tested to get back on, and so if they get off in Port Canaveral and then they can't get back on because they got tested wrong, so they're just not getting off. So the guys that are doing local business with the protocols and stuff just are running very small. So I assume we're going to walk before we, run, and so this is, I'm hoping by the January that it will get close to normal, but it really depends on how the rest of the country goes. But right now, with requiring, because the Bahamas require that you can't come, they're cruising with 100% vaccinated people except the 12-year-olds and under. So they're just operating, and I think they are doing it very cautiously. So if we could just do what you're doing, and then as they grow, I can send you a cruise schedule out because we get them weekly, and they're growing. Like last week was 11, the week before was like 8 or something, and next week is 13. So they're putting more on, but it's also the people count is way low. So it's happening, and I think it's just the pandemic is still running everything, whether the governor's right or they're right or the guy, whoever's right. I mean, in the end, how sick is the boat really going to get?
Okay. Moving on to capital facilities report.
Yeah, so Giles unfortunately was unable to make it today. The only report was the Lori Wilson approval from the board. There's no more activity for that committee remaining this year. Obviously, we'll go into next year's cycle, and we'll, go back into a new grant cycle as we go into the next budget year. So,
Okay.
no other further meetings this year either.
Anything to report from the beach committee? Julie?
No, just really happy that we got everything approved, and we're going to have a meeting on October 13th here at 2 o'clock, and we are going to discuss the 50-year plan, and I'm really excited that we're going to bring that up and talk about it as a committee. So more to come.
Make sure you print those tables in red, Mike, so the committee sees the red. It's important. We don't have a destination without the beach.
If I could,
Yes.
I'd just like to add a bit of good news related to the beach committee.
Add some color.
Working on the beach. Virginia Barker, we had a statewide Florida Shore and Beach Preservation Association, a statewide association meeting last week, and that association's very important with continuing statewide funding and efforts. But Virginia Barker, my fearless leader, Virginia received the association's highest award at our meeting last week. It's named after a couple of their long-term leaders, Stan Tate and Deborah Flack, but it's an award. They don't even give it every year. They give it every now and then when someone really stands out. So Virginia got an award for truly outstanding contributions towards statewide beach preservation at that meeting last week. So I just wanted to make sure to acknowledge her efforts in standing out on a statewide level.
That's great.
I think it's a great testament also, Mike, to the work you and your team have done, and just, the support that this council gives to beaches and the money that we've put into beach renourishment. I mean, it's tens of millions, but it's probably, if you look back over the last 10, 15, 20 years, it's hundreds of millions of dollars. And, you know, we do that by leveraging all our partners. And, you know, you always lead that charge. So tell Virginia we really appreciate the work you guys have done.
Certainly.
Thank you, Mike. I don't know if it's worth touching on, but the grants that the beach committee gave to the county, the most of those were county grants. Are those any updates there that we should be aware of, or?
No, I mean, they were all approved. There was a variety. There were a couple of county, but there were also some municipalities that were in there. And then there was also a couple for higher education institutions that were doing projects. So it was a nice mix of projects. This year is just under 900,000 that was awarded. So, you know, I think we're just moving forward on contracting and getting them going for
Committee
next year.
should know I've signed up to be a clam buddy. I will have a clam bed in my backyard that I have to go to a class.
What's that?
I got to go to clam class, and then I'm going to get my daughters out there. I got to get them wading boots for the stingrays so we can clean the clam beds
When we gonna have a clam bank?
when there's enough of them, and we want to eat out of the river again.
Virginia and I said years ago, our work is done when you can buy boutique, Brevard oysters, right? Like you buy Wellfleet oysters, when you can buy a Sebastian oyster, when you can buy a O'Galley oyster and it's on the market, then we're
Rockledge
retired. We're done.
oysters.
We're accomplished. We've let the market take over. Same thing with clams. Let it drive the work from there. So
Well, the whole purpose is to clean the river, and they do a better job of it than
we
anything.
do. And
Yeah.
if we can let the market do it, so people are putting more clams in, more oysters in, and doing the work for us,
Yeah.
that's where we'll be.
I have one comment on the beach. It was political when we started these grants, and it really came out of the reserve. So if you're willing to put the money in the grants, or taking money out of the beach nourishment too, and so the best money that I can think of spending, and the best return that we get for the county because of Virginia and her staff, has been the matching funds. And basically, we've been extraordinary and lucky that we've always had enough money to match. And so
9 to 1, 9 or 10 to 1.
I think one time it was 11 to 1, but they're unbelievable matches. So when we're doing these grants and we pull out $1 million, just remember we're giving up $9 million or $8 million on these matches. And me being a cutthroat business guy, it just drives me crazy, okay? I just, because one day we have a bad storm and we won't be able to match it, or we're going to have to go back to the taxpayers, and then we're now taxing people to do this when we already have a river fund that I don't know what the river fund is up to now, but it's probably $150 million or so more.
Over the course of the tax or over a year?
Not spent.
About 40 million a year is what we're pulling in. About 40 million a
Yeah,
year.
you're talking just shy of $500 million over the 10 years?
Yeah, but I mean, well, when we enacted these grants, taking it out of the beach fund, they had surplus money. So, and from my point of view, we've never had surplus money in the beach money. We just had reserves to marginally get us by. And having somebody like Mike to know the system and work it so well, we've been extremely, in my opinion, lucky to get as far as we did because of the staff and their efforts. And anytime we short them on reserves, we put ourselves at risk. So I just had to say that because I thought it was political to do these grants. And I'm glad you came around to boosting the reserves. I would like to see the reserves boosted.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
I think the way to accomplish what you're looking to accomplish potentially is to have, whether it's an adjustment mid-year, or whether we're looking for subsequent year's budget, because we just had our final budget hearing this week, carving out the money that otherwise would have come out from the TDT to go toward the lagoon, carving it out from the county's budget overall to the extent that we can do that. I think that way we kind of get the best of both worlds in the sense that we're bolstering the reserves for the beach fund, which absolutely is imperative, but we're also not doing something that essentially carves out the lagoon, because frankly, I don't know if we're going to have another 10 years of lagoon tax or whether it's really done when it's done with its current course. And I think if we have an ongoing source of funds for that, something is oftentimes better than nothing, even if it's not remotely enough to fully accomplish the goals. I'm not opposed to looking at that, provided we can identify another source within existing county revenue from which to take those funds. But yeah, ideally, yeah, if we have a way to do it, I would potentially support that.
The reality is, we take 2 million out, we gave up 20 million. And it just drives me crazy.
Yeah, other than perhaps our airport, the Valkyrie Airport in particular, we don't typically see 8-to-1 or 9-to-1 or better returns. We've seen matching grants with the FAA and sometimes with FDOT combined, where we're north of 9-to-1, but that's the only area in the county that I'm used to seeing that with any degree of frequency. So I'm with you in the sense that if it's something that we really otherwise would have to spend the money to do, regardless of whether the match was there, yeah, I think we should try to take use of it, make use of it to the greatest degree we possibly can.
Yep, one other comment. 50% of the property taxes that fund the county come from the barrier islands. So we're at risk. So all we're doing is protecting the assets of the county and their cash flow. And then the sales tax are like that too. Mayor, you get the benefit of the tourism on Cape Canaveral and Cocoa Beach because they distribute the sales tax. We collect for a city of 100,000, and we get it for a city of 10,000. So the sales tax definitely enhances the money because it's distributed on population, and so the benefits are unbelievable for the county as a whole, and so it pays extremely well. So if we had a disaster on the beach that Tom described earlier and it cut off, the cash flow would affect everybody because.
Oh, there's no doubt.
And so to me, that risking of it $1 million for giving up, or 2 million, and we gave up the ability to raise 20, is just.
It really makes no sense. If you look at the multiplier, the 9-to-1, when we have a fund of $500 million over 10 years, and over 10 years, we're taking $10 million out that could be matched up to $90 million in beach funds. It's not logical.
Let me ask you, Mr. Chair, too, and frankly, I can do it unilaterally as a commissioner, but I'd rather do it if it's something the TDC wants me to do and not do it if the TDC isn't interested. To ask Mr. Kranis to reach out to our budget office and/or maybe to Mr. Liesenfeld to see if there are some. And I'm not saying I think that we're going to have to make use of this, but it's nice to know what the options are as well, far in advance potentially, to see what loans interdepartmentally might be possible if we ever are in an event where we're pushing zero. I don't think we're at that point anywhere in the near term, but it's nice to know that, not to say that that takes the onus off us to replenish the reserve to a large degree, but it would be good to know what we really have in terms of a worst case apocalypse scenario. So if you guys are good with Mr. Kranis asking, I'll ask that he reach out and see what we can do budgetarily to borrow from another department if we ever are in a position where we're catastrophically hit.
Or I'm a big fan of reserves, both personally and also, now to the extent that we're involved in spending, allocating tax dollars. Maybe it's prudent to look at this $1 million grant out of the beach funds where we're giving up $9 million potentially in future match and putting a pause on that until we've actually spent the $500 million. Building the reserves up in the beach fund so that we actually have a healthy reserve and not modeling into the red in 6 years.
Yeah, I don't think they're mutually exclusive at all. I'm happy to look into both, but like I said earlier, if we can identify another source out of existing revenue sources from which to get that same amount, where it wouldn't make a substantial impact on the quality of services the county provides, and there may well be a way to do that. I don't know that it's going to be realistic for this budget that was just approved to turn around and immediately start altering it. But I think letting staff know in advance that that's something that we're very much looking to build into the budget, I think that gives them an opportunity. Our budget this year is just shy of 1.7 billion. When I started, I think we were at 1.5 billion. Granted, our millage has gone down over that time. The new construction and the valuation of existing properties has
And the
really
flipping of
bolstered
the
it.
houses.
Yeah, and the flipping of the houses leads exactly to that, to the valuations. They turn around, and if there's a new sale, guess what? It's the houses that are comparable square footage adjacent to a house that sells for 700,000 is very much likely to be reappraised or reassessed at 700,000. That's not a discounted rate that they appraise them at here. So I think if we reach out
And more and more of them are rental properties, not homesteaded.
yeah, and to the extent we can ask staff to look at building that million into the next year's budget, I don't think that's a bad idea.
Yeah,
So that
at
we
least-
can continue
At
to
least to get that budget into, get a real disaster reserve in the beach. Since we're talking about reserves, did the commission consider any makeup from the CARES Act funding for
The-
shortfall in TDC?
The ARPA funds, the second portion of it, we've not had a presentation from staff in the recent past. And when I say that, since we've had our last meeting, or probably even a couple meetings, on that second portion coming through specific to that, I think that's probably the best candidate in terms of seeking funds that aren't otherwise obligated, that at this point are totally available
Even
or
if it was
mostly
just,
available.
even if it just, I mean, not being critical at all, but with your various $5 million funds, there's a variety of things that the commission is electing the funding. It would be great if the discussion could be had to use some portion of that funds just to shore up the beach fund alone. Forget marketing and zoo and the other ancillary things.
I can tell you, Mr. Chair, with respect to that, the 5 million,
but-
that was in fact CARES funding that was delegated or divvied up amongst the different commissioners. I will tell you, to my understanding, all of it has been obligated or committed, with the exception of about $500,000 that I've got in my pot that is probably going to be, at least in large part, directed toward sewage infrastructure that's older than any of us sitting in the circle here, that's well past its life expectancy, which I think does have a tourism-related purpose, at least indirectly, in that if we have a lift station that's 65 years old or 70 years old or 50 years old that's supposed to last a quarter century, what's not in the news, namely it not leaking, is a big deal. So that money is largely spoken for, but as to the second 59 million or so that we're expecting out of ARPA, I think that's where the real money is available. I think that's a reasonable target that, I certainly would be supportive of. To the degree that you all decide to lobby any of the other commissioners and get a couple of them on board, I'm not going to preclude you from doing that. I can't act as a conduit, obviously. I can't tell you to reach out to them, but I can't stop you from reaching out to them either.
I just had a quick question.
Keith.
How much is in the reserve right now, and how much ideally should be in there?
Let's all look at Mike.
I'm looking at Mike.
I don't have the current reserve number. Peter or Brian may have access to that.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of what we look at when we look at the 50-year plan. But what happens is not only does it go into zero, it goes to negative. So what's the perfect amount of money? I don't know if there's an answer to that question, to have in reserve. I can tell you what a project costs. Mid-reach right now, that's a $9 million project. We're contributing about $3 to $4 million of that $9 million. So, if it was a real disaster, as Tom said, it could be 15 or 20 million.
So the reason I'm asking that is we know there's a shortfall coming. We talked about there's other CARES Act funds. I mean, if I wanted to put a number out to a reserve, I would want to put a number that says, we've done the math, we're going to be a shortfall of 20 million. Let's do it once and get it done with and have it in there until we use it. I don't want a long discussion, we've talked about it plenty, but a number like that I think has a lot more power. A one-time, let's use, if the CARES Act funds are legitimate, put it in, build the reserve you need. And again, once a big storm hits, it'll go away. But in the short term, we know would be covered, it solves a lot of these problems.
It's a great idea, but politically, there's
knows?
too many other competing interests for that CARES Act
I just
funding.
would point
other
out that
than-
last time, from a non-elected official point of view, it was almost like they were having trouble. I don't want to speak for the commissioner. I don't want to open a long discussion either. We've talked enough. I know they're having trouble with giving away. I think it's something that might be readily accepted because the money's still there. It's in a reserve. It can be pulled out potentially under emergency situations. And we know we solve for the future. So I would just encourage Peter, if there's a chance to calculate what that single lump sum would be, that would be a number I think you could make a good case for.
Tom, I think it's good track because we're going into the red, so you, if nothing else, you could address going into the red.
Right.
No,
You know how
okay.
much you need
That
to-
number's an easier number to.
What number is that?
Okay, and then county staff could actually, if you directed them, ask them to come back with a number that they are comfortable, okay?
And so that's
Because they're the experts in the room, and it should be coming from them, not us. Now, one other thing here I want to point out. I pushed this beach thing, Cocoa Beach and Cape Canaveral is covered. We have a 50-year agreement. I wanted to point this out because the only thing, the money that the county uses is for a short-term flipping. In other words, they cover, we get reimbursed right now because of that lawsuit, and I don't know when we run out, but for the next 10 years, I think we're covered with the feds guaranteeing put the beach back. So I'm sitting here arguing for an area that is not really covered in the area that I'm financially concerned about more so. I'm concerned about the county as a whole because as you go down, because we have reefs and we have other things, it becomes more expensive. And so we have never protected the whole county. They have piecemealed it, and we were lucky to win that lawsuit.
I think that package is just, again, I think that package, when we're ready to move forward, using that too. This is already covered. This is our gap. These are the dollars needed. Let's use this one time.
I would
payload
like
do
to
it.
say that I hear you loud and clear, and we will take this I'll add this to the Beach Committee agenda for October 13th, and let us work on this, because this is what our next task is going to be. And I think that I have a panel of experts, the dream team of a committee, that we can try to tackle this and come back with some answers.
I don't necessarily disagree. My only concern, just thinking about this as you're discussing it here, is that it could be perceived one of two ways in terms of what Bob and Keith had suggested. The first way is obviously the intended way in saying, hey, we have this massive perceived shortfall coming up in X number of years, help us out with it, with the idea that they would see that and realize they have to take drastic action, or that they ought to take drastic action to prevent that from becoming an issue, given that they have, at this point, unallocated funds that they could, in theory, resolve potentially a large percentage or all of the problem if they so chose. The other way to view it, though, and I hope it wouldn't necessarily come across this way, but it's something to consider, as I said, is you bring up such a large number that you scare them off, where they say it's so large, we're not going to bother putting $1 million or $1.5 million or $3 million or $5 million into it because it's a drop in the bucket and it's not going to accomplish anything. We've got these other projects that are shovel ready where we can have immediate results instead of waiting, quite frankly, past the time anyone in that room will have been in office and left, where it may not be as politically convenient for that to occur. So I don't know. I think it's something when you get it at the committee level or the subcommittee level, you may want to figure out to what degree you perceive that to be a risk. I'll support it either way at the TDC level. I don't know how that would be received by the commission as a whole, simply because it could be received in the extreme one way or the other. So, maybe the middle ground is trying to put those numbers together, seeing how they come back, and then kind of reconnoitering here to determine, is it so substantial that there's no realistic chance of that being a number that we could actually achieve, in which case we allude to the fact that there's a shortfall and ask them to put some amount toward it that would make a difference, but not necessarily make up the whole thing. But, I'll let the subcommittee do what the subcommittee does, and we'll see how it comes back.
I agree. And I think that's what we would do is I think we'd have that range, because right now we don't know exactly what that looks like. So, Yeah, and it could be next week. Well, no, 2 weeks. I mean, it doesn't mean like that there could be an event outside of the election of the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we don't know that unknown. So I think we're going to look at it. I know we are.
Thanks.
Healthy discussion. Sports Committee.
We did have our meeting last week, and we went over the second round of funding for the year. There are 2 rounds each year. 10 events were awarded funding for a total of $86,000. Also, I just wanted to bring 2 other things to your attention. One is, it's a reimbursable. You have to give us data after your event tracking your room nights. And so we just let you know when there are people sort of in arrears. Another one of these Phoenix Cups. So it's like they're not communicating with us, they've gone silent. They have till the end of September to either give the reports or else that money's not going to be delivered to them. So I love the system because if you don't perform in terms of delivering the reports on the room nights, you don't get your money. It seems ridiculous to me, you'd apply for the grant and put through the effort and not do that. But the staff is very diligent about making sure that happens. And finally, our next rounds, we have no more meetings planned for this year, which will start next year. We'll probably make some recommendations. We get very incomplete budgets on some of these. They just give the expenses and no income. And we are proposing that you need to give a complete budget with income and expenses to be eligible to apply. It's only a significant change to the application process.
Organizers hate that.
Oh, yeah, they hate that. They hate that.
And Mr. Chair, we do need to vote on the,
Yep. We have a recommendation from the Sports Committee to issue or to grant $86,188.30 in grants. I don't know didn't figure that out last time, if the committee's the motion and we need a second, or do we need a motion
I
and a second?
believe we said that we do need a motion and a
We'll
second.
take a motion and a second.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion from Andrew Young and a second from Mayor Medina. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
That's our report.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And then last, saving the best for last
We
as
always save the
usual.
best for last. All right, I am on.
This order doesn't change.
All right, thank you. So, as Peter already mentioned, the Cultural Committee Awards were all approved by the County Commission. I was so very glad to be sitting there watching that. I had my heart in my throat because I know what we went through last year, but it was approved. We came through with
Were they nice?
our promise. They were nice. It wasn't 100%, but it was close.
4 of us were
It was close enough. It was close enough, but we did what we promised we would do. We would bring a better quality. Maybe fewer applicants, but they would all have a better quality. The ROI was there on all of them, and as a result, we got the grants through. So I was very, very happy to hear that. The major grant applications, that is still open until Friday. So that will be there, then they will be collected, they will be given to the committee, we will adjourn and go and score them according to our newly approved guidelines, and bring our findings back to this board at the November meeting.
The 2 air shows and the boat show?
Correct.
And the boat
Well, we
race?
don't have all those applicants in yet. I don't know why they wouldn't
We're on it.
be there, but yeah,
We want
Don't worry,
to
we'll make sure they apply.
yeah.
Or not, if they don't want to.
Those are all good events for the
Yes,
county.
absolutely, absolutely wonderful. And on the BCA end, good news, the acting director, Kathy Ajaran, who is on the line listening now, she is now the actual full-blown director. So that's Kathy Ajaran, so congratulations, Kathy. And there are new members. They have brought new members on board. The new members are Daniel Curio from Edward Jones, Bonnie King, who some of us know here from 3-2 on Liftoff, Michelle Mulkey, Sandy Mitchelson, some of us know her as well. She's from the Zonta Club. Eric Parent from Next Level Digital Marketing and Media. George and Nyla Trossett and Melissa Naughton. Oh, the Trossetts are from Surfing Santas, and Melissa Naughton is from Melbourne International Airport.
And I think that's the new board, correct?
It says in new board appointments.
Yeah.
They've appointed to the board, so new board members. So I was very, very happy to see that and get some active people in there and get some good conversation going. I don't have much else to say other than that, other than thank you for approving those, and just look forward to the future and bringing the major grant applicants back to this board. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your report. That brings us to Other business from TDC members, Commissioner Lober.
I don't want to take up too much of y'all's time. I don't want to take up too much of y'all's time with this. If you want me to add this as an agenda item to a subsequent meeting, that's fine. From time to time, I've had folks float the idea of renaming Brevard to Space Coast County. And one part of me loves it and one part of me hates it. I figured this would be a good spot to kind of test the waters to see if it's a brilliant or a moronic idea. I'm not really sure myself. If you guys want to just sort of simmer on it for a little while, I can add it to an agenda as a discussion item for a subsequent meeting.
Bob wants to name it Cocoa Beach County.
Not Bogger County?
Hang on here. Mosquito County, remember where we started.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
In Swamp County, no, I'll pass that.
That's got potential, Bob.
Yeah, Arthropod County, is that what, yeah. No, if you guys want to just sort of simmer on it, which I think maybe is the best way to do it, we'll stick it on as a discussion item for a subsequent agenda and then sort of see where folks are at. But it's one of those, I'm sure there are going to be strong feelings both ways, but I figured this is the spot to introduce it because frankly, a large driver for the change would be to help the tourism industry when maps are printed, when people go on Google Earth or whatnot, and they see Space Coast County.
Actually, I would support that.
That would help.
Yeah,
Now
because then you wouldn't have to
Space
say it
Coast is a
twice.
destination. I mean, an actual,
I mean, nobody
On a
knows the
map.
name Brevard County, I can tell you that. In
No, they
our,
think
in
it's
our,
Broward.
in
Yep.
our research, it's very, very low awareness, whereas, Space Coast is mid 40%. If we put it on maps, all of a sudden it'd probably be 80%.
that would solve that problem.
Yeah, well, then you don't need to say it twice. Space Coast, Space Coast.
I just want to know, Brian, is it Bob and Tom that are asking you to do that?
No, actually, it's not. I
Send them a fake Facebook profile.
It's okay.
fake accounts, those are you guys.
So you got my vote just off the top line.
Well, I'm not even saying that I necessarily am supportive of it. I just want to get some input. And if it sounds like it's something that's to the group's liking, then maybe we put together a resolution and
We'll
pick
leave
it
Brevard
up.
to the Carolinas.
Can we, I think that should start in the marketing committee before it comes here.
If that's what y'all want, I mean, we
I think it
can,
needs to start with the legal committee. I don't know who has the power to change a county name in Florida, but
Do you
Sure, it
know?
would have to be put to the voters.
Challenge.
Would it be on a ballot?
That would have to be a ballot thing.
well,
I guess.
irrespective of what's needed to do it, my thought is if there's no desire to do it, then
Right.
let's not even waste anyone's time looking into it. If there's some desire, then we can do some due diligence and
agree.
figure out what's
Looking to
entailed.
be beat up over another subject.
Now Dave
At
can
this
write
stage in
something.
life,
Just
I've
gave
learned to
Dave
pick my
great fodder
battles.
for this article.
You're welcome, Dave.
We could have a ball team named the Space Cadets. We really could.
Well, we could have 5 space commissioners then, so. Isn't that,
The real Space Cadets, yeah.
I like that.
Space commissioners.
Okay.
Well, that's interesting.
Okay, sorry.
Does that conclude your
Any
comments?
other
That's all I've
comment?
got. I think
That
that's
was
enough.
amazing. That was good.
Mayor Medina?
So for the record, I don't want to call it Palm Bay County. However, I agree with Keith. I think that's more of a legal question regarding changing the name of Brevard County, but I have nothing to report.
Bob?
No, pass.
Alex, man, that's 2 meetings in a row Alex has missed.
He's 1 and 2.
He's 1 and 2.
I can't speak for Alex, but I will certainly find out what the story is. I did text my staff to send them a gentle reminder as to the subsequent dates.
Yeah, I thought about it at the last meeting. It's, as you've discovered, being a commissioner, as long as you have now, that it's hard to get people to even serve on boards, and it's important that the people that are appointed to serve on boards have an interest in the activity and show up and everything else. So, we need as much input as we can.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm certain there's a level of interest, a high level of interest. But, just as the folks that are the busiest and have the greatest level of knowledge with respect to a particular industry are probably the best equipped to serve, their time constraints are such that it makes it the most difficult on them. So
Yeah,
I try to give allowance when I'm not sure that there's a,
that's why you got to get people
Yeah,
like
Tom
me
and
and
I
Bob
are
and
never
Keith with
busy.
nothing to do.
yeah. I know you guys are bored, just
I'm
twiddling your
sure
thumbs.
Alex is busier than us.
Yeah.
Mayor Medina
My
runs a city
budget-
of 400,000. So the point, yeah, it's important that we have people with tourism interest because, even it's a small pot of money, even at 16 million, this is an industry that supports, what is it now? $2.5 billion in economic impact. So
And growing.
if he's not up for the job,
I'd like to give the benefit of the doubt at this point.
maybe find somebody that, I'm sure I can recommend somebody, or Keith, or somebody else.
You know folks around here.
Well, I know people that are interested in tourism, I'm sorry, Julie.
I have nothing to report.
Okay. Giles, not here. Keith.
I am going to give updates for a minute, just a couple of the fall lineup, because I think there's some relevancy. September is the last month that kids are free at the zoo, up to 3 kids free with paying adults. So tell your constituents if they want to come greatly reduced, it's the last weekend to do that. Boo at the Zoo takes place in October. We are doing it during the day again, and it's primarily because our partners who provide trick-or-treat stations, they have the financial means to do the trick-or-treat stations, but they don't have the bodies. The working folks, again, is the problem, to staff 3 weekends, people coming and working at night. So the same issues we're seeing throughout hospitality, but these are not hospitality, these are dentist's office, these are other people who come and staff them. It's the same human capital problem we find everywhere. So we're moving to a day format, which is a lot less person intensive. We are doing Jazoo as an evening event, and that will sell out because we're limiting attendance a little bit, again, because of some staffing concerns. But that is happening at night, and that sells out every year, and it is the best party you'll ever go to. So buy your tickets early. And finally, we are opening November 10th or 11th. We're bringing back the carving, the art of sand exhibits that were popular for a few years. We have, I think, carvers from 6 different countries coming. It's free with zoo admission. The theme is Under Our Seas, and of course, it'll reflect what's going on with the aquarium. That's free with zoo admission, opening November 10th through the end of April. So that'll be good. I wanted to make sure, Charity, that's on your land scheme. And Lions are coming as well. So we'll have a very busy fall once those things open. So just wanted to share that with everybody.
Anything for public dissemination on the aquarium?
Well, we're really excited. We are on the agenda for next Wednesday to have our lease and development agreement agreed by the Port Commission. Our board has already approved it. That was like a final hurdle before we get into complete campaign mode. So we're really excited about that. We've made a lot of progress working with the port over the last couple weeks to do that. We feel like we're in really good shape. And that's really the last thing we needed to get done before we went into full campaign mode. So I do know the number for the aquarium. So, we have about 31 million committed. So we just need another, let's call it 55 to 60 to get her done. But we'll get there. And I'm not asking for CARES funds, although, Commissioner, if you think that's a good face, I will gladly accept them, and we will give you a number, and we will deliver. So, anyway, just wanted to pass that on.
Excellent, thank you. That leaves,
Just me again.
no, I'm last.
I wanted to comment on at our Space Coast League of Cities dinner, our speaker happened to be Brigadier General Stephen J. Purdy, and this happened to coincide with the launch, which was all tourism. So he spoke, and there's a lot more tourism coming for the launches. So he was absolutely terrific. I'd love for him to come and speak to this board. However, he's booked solid, so if it would be all right with him, maybe we can get him after the first of the year. We can get him booked in here, and he's a very good speaker, and I'm sure you'd all be interested in what he has to say. We try to have a
commissioner on the TDC if he knows tourism.
What district would he be?
He's in line, if he's in Zachary.
There you go.
Yeah,
Problem solved.
that's where
Knows
he is.
tourism.
He is, since he is, I think we have the only Space Force, correct? And he's the guy. He's the head of the Space Force only one we have. It's the Delta 45 Space Launch. No more.
That's a busy
Space
guy.
Wing. Absolutely.
I'm sure
He's a
he's
busy
gotta
guy.
struggle,
It took a lot to
He
get
gets a
him,
lot on
so.
his plate.
And it wasn't even me that finally got him. So I was very, very happy to get him. But I just wanted to mention that and throw that out there to let you know that he is all for tourism in
He might well
Brevard.
come in. I say that because I actually had him next door for a meeting, and it didn't take a lot to get him to come out to the government center.
Well, Government Center.
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
was
but I
going to
think
dinner.
if you ask, he may well say yes.
Well, yeah, but you have to go, you fill out a 12-page application and your colonoscopy result,
They did not ask for my colonoscopy results. I think I got a waiver on that requirement.
yeah. So you have to fill out quite the application, and then you get in line.
If you have a hard time, just, I guess at the next meeting, on account of sunshine, let me know, and I'll reach out and see if I can't rope them in.
Okay, all right, thank you so very much. All right, that's my comment, thank you.
Excellent. I don't have anything else to report. I think we've discussed it all. Invite anybody to make public comment. Does anybody have anything from the public? Nope, hearing none. We'll call the meeting adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.